Alright, Tom Cruise is back. He's off to do the impossible mission once again. And of course, being a Tom Cruise movie, it leads to more running. Mission Impossible Fallout is the 6th film in the Mission Impossible series. I can't believe it's been going on for this long. And it once again brings back Christopher McQuarrie as the writer and director who did the last movie, Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. And this movie starts off with a mission gone wrong, where Tom Cruise and his team lose a bunch of plutonium, so that's not good at all. So they have to try to rectify that mistake. However, during this mission, Ethan Hunt, who Tom Cruise plays, is being shadowed by a CIA agent played by Superman himself, Henry Cavill, in the movie where we finally get to see why he couldn't shave off the mustache. So from there on out, it's just another standard spy movie. They have to get something back. There's some spy espionage. The plot goes in some twists and turns. If you've seen a lot of spy movies, or even the other Mission Impossible movies, you've seen this one, but that doesn't mean don't go see it at all. Oh, no. If anything, you should see it. This series has definitely been on a high streak, especially when you consider that the series started out in kind of a iffy spot, because I spent all of last week watching the first 3 Mission Impossible movies for the first time. I felt like number 1, directed by Brian De Palma, was kind of underwhelming. I mean, it started off on a good note, but after a while it just became more about Tom Cruise because they killed his team off in the opening of the film. And it has some good moments to it, like the scene where Tom Cruise is hanging from the ceiling, or the tunnel sequence, even though it does look like a video game at points. But overall, Brian De Palma did a decent job with it, but I didn't think it was the best. At the very least, it is better than 2, which was directed by John Woo, it's awful. Watching this movie gave me flashbacks to Die Another Day, and I just cringed throughout. The only good thing I could say about the movie is that Thandie Newton does make for some good eye candy, but that's about it. That's the only positive I could give about this movie. And, like, the second that Tom Cruise and the villain play chicken with each other on motorcycles, jump off the motorcycles in the air and start punching each other in the air, and doves fly all over the place in slow motion, I just thought, this is horrible. This is a piece of shit. It should get out of here. You know, I probably should make sure that Blu-ray's not broken, because that actually does make for a great drinking game. Okay, not a scratch. Even though I hate this movie, I still want to keep it around because, again, great drinking game with your friends. Even though I've seen Ghost Protocol and Rogue Nation beforehand, if I had seen those 2 movies first, I would have just given up on the series. But when you need your franchise revived, who do you call? You call J.J. Abrams, the very man that revived both Star Trek and Star Wars, and you give him Mission Impossible 3, which surprised me at how good this was. It has an opening sequence that is just downright phenomenal. It's tension-filled. Philip Seymour Hoffman makes for a very scary villain. And more importantly than anything, they made it about the team. Even though it is a Tom Cruise story and he gets a lot of character development, they didn't forget the team. It still feels like a team effort, and I dug it. And the moment that J.J. Abrams and Bad Robot took over the series, it has just been nothing but great from here on out. Because the next movie to follow was the first movie I saw, Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. And Brad Bird's directorial debut in live action it seems like he was doing it forever, and it's just amazing. The supporting characters are great. Paula Patton, Simon Pegg, Jeremy Renner. The action scenes are just thrilling, creative, and seeing it in IMAX was like, holy shit, this is amazing. So yeah, I love this movie. I absolutely love it. Then Mission Impossible Rogue Nation is the first one that Christopher McQuarrie directed, making him the only director to come back to the series. And I like this a lot, but I think it was kind of a step down from Ghost Protocol. I've only seen this movie once, and that was when it was in the theater, so I didn't rewatch this or Ghost Protocol in prep for Fallout, which I gotta say I like better than Rogue Nation. Now, the plot itself is just a standard spy movie. I don't think it's anything very special, but then again, with the Mission Impossible series, you don't really go into it for a deep and dark plot. I mean, this entry in the series is pretty dark, but you mainly go to the Mission Impossible movies to see the actors, the camaraderie between all the team members, and the amazing action sequences. And this one has some very thrilling action scenes. There's a motorcycle and car chase throughout Paris, which is very thrilling. The motorcycle chase in particular really puts you in the middle of the action as if you're in a first-person perspective. And you're just basically mentally dodging things left and right as if you're actually in the action. And I didn't see this in 3D. I saw it in 2D, and even in 2D, I was dodging cars. And what makes all these action scenes thrilling is that you actually care about what's going on, and most of it is really there. Obviously, there are some CG enhancements, and there are moments that are obviously CG, but again, you really feel the impact. You feel like you are there in the middle of it all, and I think this movie actually managed to come up with an action scene that's more thrilling than the Burj Khalifa scene in Ghost Protocol. Because in Ghost Protocol, the Burj Khalifa scene just made me go, whoa. And this one, I think it's the helicopter chase. There is some CG to it, obviously, and I know they probably had to digitally remove some wires off of Tom Cruise, but I just really want to know from either Christopher McQuarrie or Tom Cruise how much of that was real, because it looks so real. I can't imagine what it looks like in IMAX. Now, as I mentioned before, another reason you go to this movie is to see the camaraderie between all the team members, and it's still really good. I like how with all the Mission Impossible movies after 3, they've been a little more consistent and have kept people around rather than just had a rotating door of people for every movie. Because you brought back Rebecca Ferguson, you brought back Simon Pegg, who has been with the series since 3, and you brought back Ving Rhames, who has been there since the beginning. And they all have great camaraderie with each other, just like in the last movie or the last few movies, depending on which cast member has been around the longest. And they feel more than just co-workers or team members. They really feel like friends, or dare I even say family. You know what? Speaking of family, I'm just going to put this out right now. This series puts the Fast and Furious franchise to shame, because that series of movies tries to do the same thing, where it's like you don't really go to these movies for the plot, you just go to see the camaraderie between the actors and the action sequences. But where the Fast and Furious fails is that it has action scenes that are just so downright absurd that they're unbelievable. And even though I do like a lot of the actors in the Fast and Furious, they don't really hold a candle to the actors in the Mission Impossible series. Because in here, all the actors have fantastic charisma, and the action scenes, even though some of them are a little far-fetched, they have some realm of believability. Unlike the Fast and Furious movies, where you have them racing against a submarine, and The Rock just pushing a torpedo aside like it's nothing. One thing I also really loved was the film's score. This is done by the same composer that did Pacific Rim Uprising, which I thought was a fine score, but here I really dug it. It really helps intensify the situation that's going on. Sometimes it has a little feeling of James Bond, and at other times it feels like a Hans Zimmer score, or something like he would do for a Christopher Nolan movie, which is ironic because Hans Zimmer scored Mission Impossible 2, and I thought that was an awful score, but here I actually dug it. I still like Michael Giacchino's scores in 3 and Ghost Protocol, but this one definitely stuck out, and I definitely buy it on iTunes. And also, this movie does what I really liked 3 for doing, which is make it a team effort, but also give a lot of time to the story of Ethan Hunt, because this is more of a personal matter than it is for anyone else on the team, because the film's villain seems to be taunting Ethan Hunt a lot, and just really puts a lot of pressure on him personally, and it just works really well. I don't think it works as well as it did in 3, but still, as much as I love Ghost Protocol, that movie didn't really give enough time to Ethan Hunt, and here they gave him a lot of time. Now, a lot of people are already calling this movie one of the great all-time action movies ever made. It just came out, guys. I think we just need a little time to really think about it. I mean, it might be one of the best action movies of the decade. We'll see what happens. But right now, I need a little time to think about it because there are some things I had issues with. This movie is pushing 2.5 hours, and I just feel like maybe trim it down a bit. It didn't need to be this long. And speaking of that main villain, I thought he was kind of weak. I don't remember if he was in the last movie, Rogue Nation, because they do talk about the Syndicate a lot. So if he was in the last movie, I don't remember him that much. But just basing him off this movie, I didn't really find him threatening, because throughout the whole movie, a lot of his dialogue is just monologuing to Ethan Hunt about how the end is near, and it just seems like a homeless guy that managed to go to a martial arts school and get his hands on nuclear weapons. It just seemed, I don't know, there were a few points where he just didn't seem all that threatening. For me, personally, no villain in the Mission Impossible series has ever come close to Philip Seymour Hoffman in 3. Philip Seymour Hoffman in Mission Impossible 3 was terrifying. He was scary. And this guy, not so much. But outside of that, I have nothing else to complain about with Mission Impossible Fallout. It is a thrilling action movie from beginning to end. The dynamic between all the team members is great. The humor works really well. And it's just entertaining all around. I cannot praise this movie enough. Yeah, it has its problems, but still, it's something that's definitely worth seeing in your lifetime. I'm not going to go quite the extra mile and say get off your ass and go see it right now, because I still love Ghost Protocol. That's my favorite of the series still. And I also need a little more time before I really think to myself, is this one of the great action movies of all time? Time will tell, but still, right now, please see it. And that's my review for Mission Impossible Fallout, and depending on how the rest of the year goes, this could maybe end up on my best of list. So we'll see what happens, but I want to hear what you guys have to say. If you've seen Mission Impossible Fallout, let me know in the comments below what you thought of it. What's your favorite Mission Impossible movie, and what's your least favorite? So until next time, I hope you enjoyed this review. Go ahead, subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, and of course leave a comment. Don't forget to support my Patreon page, follow me on social media, and until next time, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you there's only one.